Today we're going to be working on watercolor washes, gradient washes in warm tones, which I've already done here, and also some cooler tones, greens, blue, and purple. So it's important that you have all the materials you need. I used some tape here that isn't masking tape, but normally you would use masking tape. I use this type of tape, and I taped down the 4 rectangular squares that I'm going to be working on, so that when I remove the tape, I'll have nice even white lines around, and be able to cut these into 4 different works of art, or 4 bookmarks is what we're going to be creating. I also have some tissues here. You can use paper towel or napkins when you want to dry and switch colors. And it's also important that you get your palette ready by activating it with water, and also that you have a water source, a watering container that you put a little bit in, about 1 inch, and then a receptacle to put when your water gets kind of murky and you want to switch out water, so that you don't have to constantly go back and forth to the sink. So I've already done a yellow, orange to red gradient wash and a red, orange to yellow, so opposite. And now I'm going to be working in blue, green, blue, and purple. And you want to make sure, just as you always do, that you are activating the color by putting a lot of water in. Let me move this over here. And you do that first whenever you're painting anything in watercolors. You want to keep going back and forth. This is very tedious. So now we've got enough green. This is kind of a soupy green, a soupy blue, and a purple. And then we've also brought some of the color over here. And the reason why you bring your color over here is so that you can do mixing. And maybe you want to start out with a blue that is has a little more purple in it, or a little more red in it. Or you want to start out with a green that's a lighter green. If you added a little bit of yellow in it, you could make it a little bit of a lighter green to start. Today we're not really mixing too many colors, but this is where you do all your mixing. And note, you want to leave that. Don't ever wipe that off, because this is good paint to use later. So as my red, orange, and yellow are drying, that's paint that I can reactivate with water whenever I want to use it. So we're going to be using the width of the brush, so this part of the brush, to do the painting, so that we can blend the colors in. And one of the things that some watercolorists like to do is first wet, and we already have this kind of purpley, they wet the background. As you can see, this has a little bit of color to it already. So they start off with just wetting the entire area with as clear-ish water. And so we're going to do that for this next one. And this helps when you put the colors in, because you're doing wet on wet, to have the colors bleed into each other. Okay? So now I'm, again, always activating. I'm going to start with green. And this is pretty soupy, so I can start here. And I'm using the width of the brush and bringing in, I'm kind of working quickly, because if you work quickly, then you won't see any lines in the green. It won't be like a line that demarcates where you painted from one line to the next. And that's what you want. So now I'm going to go into blue. Make sure, again, this has got to be pretty wet. And as I put in, this is hard to do a little bit if you don't go quickly and add enough water. So I'm kind of dropping water in, so there's sort of a gradation between the green and the blue. So it doesn't look like green and then blue, but it blends into one another. Let's put a little bit more blue in before we go to the purple. But you can see, because that water is there, that it's fanning and getting a little bit closer, or blending into the water that's already there. So now we're going to add the purple, and we'll drop that in too. And I add a lot of purple, so I need to add a lot of water to make sure those two blend together a little bit better. Still seeing a line, so I'm going to drop some water here, so that it's a little bit more of a blend. Now, if you feel like you have too much paint on there and you want to take some of the paint off, you really can't erase it, but what you can do is take your napkin or your paper towel or whatever you have and blot it, and then you'll have to go re-over it. So if I didn't like over here, it's getting a little intense and look, it's going up, I can sort of blot it a little bit if I don't like it too much. And then if I want to go back over it, you can't overwork it too much because the paper will start to pill, but you can do it a little bit. And so I'm just going to finish out the bottom with a lot of purple to make it sort of a stronger purple at the bottom and blend it up. So that's kind of what you're looking for. This last one is going to be the opposite. I happen to have a really big wide one, so that's okay. I'll go here. Start with the purple, and notice I'm not starting with water first. I'm just starting with the color, and this is a wider space, so I've got to move kind of quickly with the purple. But now I'm going to add a lot of water as I start to blend in the next color, which is blue, and drop it in. See a little bit of a line there. So let's see if I can drop a little more color in where the two colors meet. And then we'll go really strong blue here. Again, using the side of the brush all the way over. Adding a little more water in. A little more blue as we go down. I'm working, as you can see, pretty quickly. That's a pretty good gradation there. See it that way. And the water is sort of acting as a blender here. And then let's go into the green. Start off with a watery green. That's a nice blend there. Let's see if I can move this over. And then a little more watery on the green before we get in a more solid green area, the bottom, and kind of blend that up into it here. So now we're done. We can wash our brush. See the whole thing. And you can see some it's starting to sort of move up. You can also have your painting on something raised, or just move your painting around. As I move this around a little bit, it starts to blend down there. And on this side, this is already dry, so I'm going to remove the tape so you can see. But you want to wait till everything dries before you remove all the tape. And if you're using masking tape or this kind of tape, it's good, I forgot to do this today, but it's good to tape it on something else like fabric, like your sweater or jeans, so it's a little less sticky so that it doesn't rip the paper. So this paper is pretty, it's holding up well. It's not ripping at all as I pull it off. And that makes a nice clean line. And the same with the rest. I'll just peel this off. Very satisfying to see the nice line that it makes when you're done. I'm going to stop there because I don't want the paint. If I pull this off now as it's wet, it will probably bleed into the paper, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just going to do the side that is already dry. And so, oops, see, it's starting to rip a little. You have to go slow. If you find that it starts to rip like it is here, what I would do is stop from that direction, and I would come down the other direction, and that will minimize the ripping. The slower, the better. It did rip a little bit, and that's fine. Again, if you use masking tape, it should come out better. But your finished product will look something like this. And then you can cut these, or you can work on them as they are. And here we have the final work. I've taken the tape off, and you can see in some places there's rips in the paper, but not too bad. But the colors I was able to blend in fairly well for both the warm and cool tones. And you can see how they blend and fade into one another here. And that's what we're hoping for. So there you have the gradient wash.